Good morning, my friends. It is almost Friday. Tell you what, I have been binging all of the Quinton Simon information. There's been a lot of locals talking in different groups. And it seems that day one of jury selection wasn't very easy. Would we expect it to be? Would we? I don't know if I could sit on that jury. That's it's actually in the thumbnail. The title of the show is Leilani's on trial. Quinton deserves justice, but the thumbnail says, could you be on the jury? Little different sitting behind the computer than sitting there and listening to everything. Our girl GB, who also just gifted one Crime Lines and Lies membership, she goes, I heard it was a doozy. Remember when they were doing jury selection for Gannon and people were physically ill? They had to offer counseling to people once the trial concluded. I just don't know if I could sit. I mean, I talk a good game. Don't get me wrong. I can bullshit with the best of them. I'm being honest here. I don't know if I could sit there and do that. I don't know if I could sit there and listen to it. Look at the pictures, go through the forensics. Whew. Well, before I get too grim, let's say hi to everybody. I see Mermaid made it in. Retro Girl, Nufflin, what up? Ilyanka? Ilyanka said, if they want Quinton to get justice, they damn well would put me on a trial. Girl, I wouldn't want you on my jury if I did something wrong. I don't care if it was for freaking loitering or throwing a cigarette butt out the window. You'd be like, death penalty. No, love you, girl. Snowy Poo made it in. They're my friend Angel P, Connie, Stacy. Stacy said I couldn't do it. Hey, Britt. Laverne said I could not. Wiss said it would not be easy. No. Freaking lie lazy. It makes you wonder what the hell got into her, and I refuse to believe it was just the drugs. Some people love to minimize it and go, it's just because she was on drugs. You know, she was just on those nasty drugs. Look, a lot of people take drugs. A lot of people drink alcohol. A lot of people overeat. Some people lie out their ass. It doesn't bring them to the place she was at. Look at freaking Letitia Stout. I'll never get over that. The pure torture she put Gannon through. I know I had quite a few comments about, I'm not understanding Billy's impact on the house. That I should give Billy a break. I'm going to try not to talk about Billy through this trial. It's hard. But I have to remember, Billy's not the one on trial. Billy was out of town. I do believe Billy loves her grandson. And I'm not trying to bring, a mob against her or anything. She's had plenty of that. And Billy is going to have to testify. But as of right now, none of it will be televised. All right, let's do a check-in real quick. Which one of my Florida friends made it in? Who has power? Who has water? Who made it through the storm? Let's take a second and tell everyone hola. I just spit my coffee because I just came across this comment from my girl, Two Boston Moms. Just like the Kool-Aid man. She just said, fuck Billy. No, Two Boston Moms don't care. She just said, fuck Billy. She doesn't care. Well, that lie lazy. Hold on. Chrissy. She said, I'm worried about TCB. I am too because I haven't heard from her. She's not in chat. She's not answering her phone. And that's not like her. She hasn't been active in any of her groups. So yeah, I'm really worried about her too. Has anybody tagged her in Discord or anything? Because she could just be sleeping in. I'm really worried about her. So we have to get a head count of our friends that weathered the storm. Seeking Serenity said, but Grandma was given custody for a reason and she failed that little one. I agree 100%. And I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for them to actually put charges on her. And at this point, it looks like they're not going to. It's been over 2 years, so I'm just going to assume that ship has sailed. But she has to live with it the rest of her life. She has to live with this. I don't like it. You don't like it. Hippie Grandma just made it in. She doesn't like it. This is the group of women here that we're talking about, and I'll never understand them. Dead eyes, you monsters. 16 potential jurors were dismissed yesterday. They're trying to get down to a pool of 50, and then they're going to start doing the picking. I don't know how to make this full screen, so we may just have to listen.
Jury selection is underway now for the trial of Savannah mom, Leilani Simon, accused of killing her toddler son, Quinton. WJCL 22 News' Andy Cole has been covering the story from the start and was in court again today.
The trial of Leilani Simon began Wednesday with jury selection. More than 60 potential jurors were brought in and questioned by both sets of lawyers to determine who could ultimately decide if Simon is innocent or guilty.
They brought 60 in, 60. 16 were dismissed. I'm not the best at math, but they're trying to get a pool of 50 so then they can start going through that. They have a lot of questions for these people. One, what do you know about this case? And let's face it, not just in the Savannah area, but nationwide, we've heard a lot about little baby Quinton. Does his face not bring you to tears? V. Oakley said, is jury selection today? It started yesterday. I do not know how long it's going to go on.
Cameras weren't allowed in the courtroom, but I was there for the entire 7-hour process.
I want to know why Court TV is saying that they're going to be there and they're going to stream it on the daily when the courts are telling the local news in Savannah that it will not be streamed. I'm going to make the rules, but I'm really hoping it is. Kinda.
Process. The day began with basic questions for the 67 jurors, like, have you heard of this case? Do you know anyone involved? Have you made up your mind about the guilt or innocence of the defendant? For the record, 9 potential jurors said they've already decided about Leilani Simon. When individually questioned, one potential juror who claims to have been following the case since the beginning asked the prosecutor, who else could have done it? There's no evidence that could convince me otherwise. That's the challenge for the state and defense.
I don't know who that juror is, but I dig it. Who else could have done it? That'd be like something Ilyanka would say. Well, who else would have done it? She's the mama. She's there. Kat said, Brooks, the order permitted court TV to stream. Thank you, Kat. Thank you. Okay, thank goodness. Our girl Just Me said TCB is safe. All right. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Yeah, I want to meet this juror. Who else could have done it?
Evidence that could convince me otherwise. That's the challenge for the state and defense, finding potential jurors who either haven't heard of the case or, if they have, determine who amongst them could impartially serve on a jury. Of the original 67 potential jurors, 20 qualified and 16 others were dropped. The goal is to find 50 qualified potential jurors, so then the lawyers can whittle those down to just 12. A final motions hearing is scheduled for Thursday morning, followed by more jury selection on Friday. We'll, of course, be there for every moment of it. In Savannah, I'm Andy Cole, WJCL 22 News.
Scum bucket. Scum bucket. She makes me so mad. All right, we're going to go into the time capsule and go back to some of the things that don't even scratch the surface that we have previously heard. And much, much more will be presented to this jury. God be with them.
The details revealed about the death of Quinton Simon. The prosecutor is officially responding to the defense attorney's motions to throw out parts of that indictment.
None of it's been thrown out. As I said in the last show about little baby Quinton, I said it's really perplexing to me, very perplexing, that her defense team was adamant about throwing out text messages between her and Danny and her and Billy. Both Danny and Billy will have to take the stand. No getting around it. No way, no how. They will have to testify. What in those text messages did her defense team want thrown out so badly?
WJCL 22 News' Andy Cole has been following the story since the very beginning. Joining us now.
I don't like when people wear brown and blue. I just don't. I don't like when people wear black and navy. But this is just not a good look. He should at least put on a tie with like a popping color, so it's just not so, I don't know. Maybe it's his skin tone. I don't know.
On the studio with the very latest. And Andy, she wants some charges thrown out.
Greg, that's right. Back in March, the defense tried to throw out 3 murder charges and 4 of the false statement charges. They did it by filing 2 demurs. Today, the state responded to those claims, sharing new details about Quinton's gruesome demise. For the first time, we're learning more about the final moments of 20-month-old Quinton Simon's life. In the response to Leilani Simon's special demur, the state outlined what happened after Leilani allegedly threw Quinton's body into a trailer park dumpster. Hours after throwing Quinton's body away,
Let's nutshell this. Into a trailer park dumpster. Into a trailer park dumpster. That statement in itself would make me disqualified to be a juror. Because you know what I would want? I would tell TPD, Leilani, because she is a trailer park dumpster, I'd say, let's get this over with now and put her in one. She can take a ride. down to waste management. Have to be kidding me. And what is going on around here, Diana? How are we gifting the memberships? Tell you what, we need all the support we can get. StreamYard has like doubled their prices. Hell, I didn't know till it hit Greg's checking account today. Joke's on him. Trailer park dumpster. Oh.
Hours after throwing Quinton's body away, a garbage truck came, lifted the trash, and dumped it into a compactor inside the truck. When the load arrives at the landfill, it's dumped on the ground and a bulldozer shoves the garbage 300 feet into different cells. Quote, "This is not a neat process," prosecutors write in there.
This is not a neat process. Think about it. He's put in the dumpster. He's compacted all the way to waste management, spread over 300 feet. They said this is not a neat process. And she is sitting there listening to all of this, not a tear in her eye.
Their response, they say it requires multiple sweeps by the bulldozers that shove, spread, and smear the contents.
Shove, spread, and smear. I think about those agents that came in from Quantico, Virginia, that spent grueling weeks combing through. Even though idiots were like, I'll go down and I'll find him. Okay, look, he's not walking around the landfill. You're not going to find a whole human body, okay? Like they said, it's not a neat process. That's the reason they have to bring professionals in to do it. I wouldn't even know what I was looking at. And that's a very grim and disgusting thing to say, but I'm telling you, it's disgusting. It's horrible. What amount of hate do you have to have for anyone besides your own child to put them through this?
Once at the cell, prosecutors say Quinton's body was then compacted again by a 50-ton steamroller. Quote, all of which is to say Quinton's body went through a lot. By the time the expert searchers found him after looking for more than a month,
50-ton steamroller. Now, it goes without saying, Leilani does not care. She just wanted him out of her face. I got to do something with him. I do wonder who gave her the advice on what to do. Because let's face it, she's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. When I say Leilani, which I love when Kat gave her that name, I can't get it out of my head now. She is lazy. Who made the suggestion? Because I would love to know.
Quinton's body went through a lot. By the time the expert searchers found him after looking for more than a month, his body had undergone severe trauma and decomposition. And it wasn't in just one place. Prosecutors say he was dispersed across the landfill. Quote, a bone here, a tissue there.
Hence why, in my opinion, it's going to be very hard to find a jury. Good morning, Kelsey Queso. They were dispersed across it. A bone here, a bit of tissue there. And that thing is going to sit behind the table with her attorneys, and I promise she'll have no reaction to what she did. She was so unbothered that she went to Tybee Island and partied it up one weekend.
Tissue there. The basis of Leilani's demurrer for the murder charges is that the state wasn't specific enough in their indictment, but the state argues that an indictment can only be as specific as the evidence. With his body in pieces, prosecutors admit no cause of death has been determined or likely ever will.
Two Boston moms, thank you for the reminder. Didn't they say they found brain matter on a pillow or pajamas? In March of this year, 2024, they said that they were doing special testing on his little pajamas, which obviously they would have found in the landfill. And this special testing is just that. It's extremely special because they were testing his little pillowcase that was in his pack and play and his pajamas for brain matter. Let that sink in. I know it's really hard to charge a circumstantial case, but just to hear that they're testing for brain matter and that when they luminoled a specific area of the Buckhalter Road home, it lit up like a Christmas tree. I don't think further explanation for me would be needed. Kimberly Mann, thank you for gifting the Crime Lines and Lies memberships. What am I going to do with you girls today?
Chatham County mother accused of killing her toddler is set to go to trial. Leilani Simon's case goes before Superior Court Judge Tammy Stokes.
News 3's Genevieve Lund is live outside the Chatham County Courthouse with...
By the way, I really dig this judge. She plays it fair, she plays it square, and she will say, let me consider your motions, and I'll see you back in 6 weeks or whatever. Every time they come in, she just flat out puts them in their place and says, yeah, I considered that. And it's a big F no for me. That answer is just a big oh no for me.
Details on the case. Genevieve, good morning.
Good morning. 2 years ago, the Coastal Empire lost a toddler that rocked the entire area. Mother Leilani Simons was arrested after investigators found her son's remains. And later today, her trial will begin here. This past Saturday marked 2 years since the death of 20-month-old.
And to think that on Saturday was 2 years since he was reported missing. Just last Saturday. I'll say this. The DA, the judge, the chief, they have not dicked around. 2 years and she's already on trial. I'm actually loving that. They confiscated a lot of things. One thing that was mentioned was one of those plastic trophies. You know, they sell at the end of the aisles at like Walgreens or CVS or maybe Walmart, or as Daisy says, the Walmarts. It's a plastic trophy that says World's Best Mom. And that was mentioned in a lot of different chats by somebody that would know. That in itself made me sick. It all makes me sick.
They marked 2 years since the death of 20-month-old Quinton Simon. His mother is now set to go on trial, facing 19 charges, including murder. Simon reported her son missing on October 5th, 2022, but after an extensive search, his remains were found a month later in a Chatham County landfill, leading to her arrest. And 2 years ago, when Chatham County Police first received the call that the child was missing, they were hopeful they'd find him alive and unharmed. In a news conference they shared, they found evidence pointing towards his mother being responsible for his disappearance.
From A to Z, we were 100% committed to bringing justice for Quinton, and we believed that this was the right move today to be able to do that.
Chief Hadley breaks my heart because he caught so much social media hell about the way he was conducting his investigation, why he was not going to go ahead and just arrest her. Well, he didn't want to dick around with it. He wanted the big fish, not the guppy. And without an eyewitness, it's almost impossible to charge somebody with the big M. And I know many people say, oh, they do it all the time. They do it all the time. They do it with an eyewitness. They do it with an eyewitness, not just, well, this is what we think, we're going to arrest them. But some people don't understand that. Social studies wasn't their thing. It's okay. I just felt horrible. And I think this man will never, ever wake up any morning not thinking about little Quinton. They say to this day he has a picture of him in his office.
Being responsible for his disappearance.
From A to Z, we were 100% committed to bringing justice for Quinton, and we believed that this was the right move today to be able to do that. She doesn't deserve a Thanksgiving, quite frankly, if I can go off script a little bit. Quinton deserves that.
This broke my heart because he's choking back tears. She doesn't deserve a Thanksgiving. And that's when he starts choking up. Quinton, and he gulps, takes a deep breath. Quinton deserves that. She's going to have a real special Thanksgiving this year.
Be able to do that. She doesn't deserve a Thanksgiving, quite frankly, if I can go off script a little bit. Quinton deserves that.
Jury selection begins here at 9 a.m. and WSAV will be in the courtroom with the latest information, and we'll have that all updated on air and online. Reporting at the Chatham County Courthouse, Genevieve Lund, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Oh, it's going to be a huge witness list. You're going to have Diana the babysitter. You're going to have people from the trailer park, FBI agents, the chief, his investigators, bio dad, Danny, Billy, Tommy, possibly. They haven't put the witness list out yet. And if they have, I haven't seen it. But it's going to be bad. Broken golf doll took the words right out of my mouth. Some cases just get to you more than others, and this is one of them, for sure. Well, good old Vinny, he's on it. He did an entire, what do they call it? Deep dive. He did a deep dive. And a lot of it is stuff that you and I have known for 2 years, but I just love that they're putting the juice on right before they start picking a jury. Some people say, not a good idea. Look, I'm being petty. I'm all for it.
I'm Vinny Politan. The subject of my investigation is the tragic story of a little 20-month-old boy from Georgia named Quinton Simon.
This always pissed me off. When she called and talked to 911, she said he's a year old. A year is 12 months. He was going on 2 years old. This is the type of math Candace Wells does. She's like, well, Summer's been missing like 2.5 years, going on 3. Hell, she said that just a little after Summer had been missing a year. You don't even know how old your child is?
Now, once you see a picture of this little guy, you will wonder how anyone could bring harm to him, but someone did. Here's his story. 20-month-old Quinton Simon was living with his grandparents, his mother Leilani, and her boyfriend. On October 5th, 2022 at 9:40 a.m., there was a call to 911.
Look at those eyes. Look at those cheeks. Look at those chubby little arms. Look what a beautiful, beautiful baby he is. And Fundaski, this definitely needs to be reminded. Thank you. Bubba's mom passed away due to cancer, and his father died because of a hit and run, all within 6 weeks. And also, Bubba's son was murdered. I'm not saying he was the best daddy in the world. I think he had a lot to deal with old Leilani. But look at everything the devil took from him. And it can only be that.
To report this little boy missing. The investigation began as a missing persons case. Was this an abducted child? Did little Quinton sneak away into the nearby woods? Soon, the investigation would change. It became a homicide investigation, with Quinton's mom as
Casey Lasher. She said, I would love to hear your deep dive on this. Girl, we have a whole playlist. If anybody can put the playlist in here, I would really appreciate it, because our very first show was October 7th of 2022, I believe. And the name of the show was No Foul Play My Ass. Yeah, we've talked extensively about little baby Quinton.
the prime suspect. Then the true crime community spotlight started to shine on Leilani and her family. Protesters began to gather outside of their home, demanding answers and making accusations. The police investigation continued.
This absolutely broke me when I saw those agents come in from Quantico in those hot ass suits, and it's hot outside, going through, well, as they said, a bone here, tissue there. And I think what really upset me almost as much as that is when people were giving them hell. These people are hundreds of miles away from their own bed, their own children, wives, husbands, and they're catching hell from dipshits with a phone.
And led to an expansive search of a landfill. Eventually, remains of Quinton were found. Leilani was arrested, locked up, and charged with his murder. And now a jury and the public will hear the evidence that hopefully answers all those questions about what happened to little Quinton Simon. All the stories we do are difficult. When it's little children like that, it takes it to the next level. Did you see his little brown? I mean, you look at that child. Why would anyone do anything other than hug him?
I can't agree more. I can't agree more. And I'm highlighting a ton of your comments today because you guys are all over it. Good morning, Connie's sister. I see you got a membership. Woohoo. Karma Libra said they can never unsee what they have seen. Now, the internet idiots said, oh, they see that every day. They're used to it. Bullshit. Bullshit. I don't care how many car wrecks an EMT has come up on. You don't get used to seeing things like that. No, you don't. I don't even know about the human stain anymore. I really don't. But I agree with Vinny 100%. Why would you want to do anything to Quinton besides just hug him and grab those little cheeks?
I don't understand that, but we've got to try to figure this all out. Got to figure this all out. And investigations often start, and really do start most of the times, with the 911 call. That's the first time that law enforcement is then intervening in whatever is happening. And that's what happened here. There's a 911 call made, and it's Leilani Simon and her boyfriend, Daniel, who have the phone and are making the call in the morning. It's about 9:40. Take a listen.
911, what is your emergency?
Yeah, I need to believe come from kidnapping. Yeah.
You said someone they kidnapped?
Yeah, we...
Oh, we've never heard this part of the 911 call. Thank you for the deep dive, Vinny. And the Oscar goes to anyone but Leilani. Listen to her.
Did you see his little brown? I mean, you look at that child. Why would anyone do anything other than hug him? I don't understand that, but we've got to try to figure this all out. Got to figure this all out. And investigations often start, and really do start most of the times, with the 911 call. That's the first time that law enforcement is then intervening in whatever is happening. And that's what happened here. There's a 911 call made, and it's Leilani Simon and her boyfriend, Daniel, who have the phone and are making the call in the morning. It's about 9:40. Take a listen.
911, what is your emergency?
Yeah, I need to believe come from kidnapping. Yeah.
You said someone they kidnapped?
Yeah, we...
You have 1-year-old son? Yes! When was the last time you seen him?
I saw him this morning when I left at 6.
Okay, there's Danny, who, in my opinion, sounds a little bit confused. I saw him this morning when I left at 6. So he's listening to Savannah's Meryl Streep there. Well, I saw him at 6. Does Danny sound... I'm not saying Danny's a salt of the earth dude, but does he sound just a tad bit confused? Let's listen to this again.
About 9:40. Take a listen.
911, what is your emergency?
Yeah, I need to believe come from kidnapping. Yeah.
You said someone they kidnapped?
Yeah, we...
open, the front door is open, and the place is empty, please.
Your 1-year-old son?
Dad!
When was the last time you seen him? I saw him this morning when I left at 6. Okay, have you guys gone outside to check the area? Yes. How old is he? And he can't open the door. So you think
Okay. Now, this is big. You think someone broke in because Danny goes, he can't open the door. He can't open the door. But then she changes her story how many times? Oh, he can open the door. He goes, he can't open the door.
someone broke in and any time to break it in? No. No breaking in, the door was open. Was it unlocked? Yeah, but the front door had bolts though, but yeah, it was.
No, I can't find him. No, I can't find him. Help. Hold on. He's in the dumpster at this point. Danny, who once everything started getting discussed with him, he got the hell out of Dodge. He went to Hotlanta to play pool with his rapper buddies. He's sitting there going, the door's bolted. Nobody broke in.
Okay, give me a description on him. Give me a description. He's like he's what now?
You got dark brown hair. His eyes are like a brown green hazel.
Okay. And he's black, white, Hispanic.
He's Hawaiian.
He's what now?
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian?
Yes.
It's you listen to the call and you're wondering. I mean, because it has happened. We've covered that story where someone breaks into a home in the middle of the night and takes a young child. It can happen. It has happened. But you look at a case like this and a story and an investigation, and a child goes missing from a house. I mean, there's an obvious first question for all of this, and it's our first question of our investigation tonight, which is, who was at the house that day? Who was there? It's an important question. Who are the people that are in the house where Quinton was staying? Let me bring in my guests who are going to help us through all this. Joining me, forensic death investigator, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, and host of the very popular Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan, and podcast host and Pop Crime TV reporter, Lauren Conlon with us. Thank you both for being here. Great to see you. I wanted to put up a quick little timeline here because this is a story where a little bit of information has come out, not a ton, but some information has come out. This is significant. 5:29 a.m., Quinton's babysitter receives a text message saying no services would be needed for Quinton that day. That's 5:29 a.m. 6 a.m.
What the hell was going on all night? Danny's in bed. He has to be at work. Paul's in bed with his headphones on. But you're telling me Miss Responsible Mama, Leilani, make sure to tell Diana at 5:29 a.m., I won't be needing your services today. Wanted to make sure Diana understood she wasn't going to be bothered. No. That is, well, I'm going to say at this point, red flag number, I'd say 6 or 7.
Baby Quinton is reportedly last seen in his playpen at the home. 9:39, Leilani and her boyfriend Daniel call 911 to report Quinton missing. Then we get to 1 o'clock and the FBI immediately jumping in to help with this search down in Savannah, Georgia. So, Lauren, as we look at...
I believe that the chief and his investigators had already put together the lies from Leilani and immediately said, we need the FBI. So when people say, why is the FBI not involved? Why is the FBI not involved? Either they need them or they don't. So they get a phone call around 9:30 a.m. FBI is there at 1 p.m. Now we know from other news clips, FBI was getting cameras, security cameras from the trailer park. One in particular that was pointed right at the dumpster.
Who's at the house that night? So Leilani's obviously there. It seems her boyfriend Daniel is there. Who else is in this home?
Well, Vinny, I first want to clarify that this home belongs to Leilani's mother, Billie Jo Howell, and her husband, Thomas Howell. And Leilani and Daniel and the 3 kids have a room downstairs while the upstairs is occupied by Billie Jo and Thomas, and also Leilani's older brother, Paul Simon. And yes, that's his real name, Paul Simon. But Billie Jo and Thomas were not there at the time. As far as we know, it was just Leilani, Thomas, and the 3 kids.
Joseph Scott Morgan, looking at that timeline, the first thing that jumps out to me, 5:29, canceling the babysitter. You don't need to come over. And this is someone from the neighborhood who has spoken about the case, but is, likely going to be an important witness in all this. And then at 6 o'clock, it seems that the boyfriend says, yeah, I saw Quinton at 6 a.m. when I was leaving for work.
Which I believe he did see him before he went to work, but it's not like Danny got a pulse, okay? Didn't occur to Danny, who is not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, that he could be not sleeping but dead. Oh, waitress said she called the babysitter at 5:29. Danny saw him at 6 when he left for work, supposedly returned home because he forgot his phone. But they don't call the police till 9:45. Another thing, why did Leilani use his phone, Danny's, to text Diana and then erase it from his phone? We had a lot going on that morning. Nothing compared to what little baby Quinton went through.
I'm looking at those 2 things. I wonder, well, why don't you need the babysitter?
Yeah, one of the things that we look for in investigations then is, particularly when you're talking about, because, initially this is a missing child case. All right. So you begin to think about that. And one of the questions you're going to ask, is there anything that indicates that behaviors have deviated from the norm? So when you would question a parent about something like this, something so horrible, one of the first questions out of the gate is, do you ever cancel the babysitter? And if so, how frequently have you done this? And is this the normal time of day that you would do this? Remember, this is done from texting. So if there's a history.
I can help our pal here, Joseph Scott Morgan. He's a super, super nice guy. I can help him with this. Diana, the babysitter, was also perplexed because she said, even if they have nothing to do, I still watch the kids. So I can clear that question up. She said that, I believe, October 6th, when she gave her interview to WSAV. She was a bit perplexed because even when they don't have shit to do, they still need a babysitter.
History of this, you can go back and look at the text if this is their normal piece, if this is the way they do it. And right you are, Vin, when you talk about this point of contact, they're going to be essential in establishing the timeline and also prior behaviors.
Yeah, Lauren, this to me, the canceling of the babysitter at 5:29 to me is a little odd. It's a lot odd. Like if you don't need a babysitter, you should know the night before. Would you wake up at 5 o'clock and say, "Oh, we don't need a babysitter today"? That defies logic, I think, to anyone.
Yes, I agree with you. It's incredibly odd. As a mother, I'm not waking up at 5:30 a.m. and texting my babysitter. And I think that this babysitter really cared about Quinton. There are reports that this babysitter was actually the one that got Leilani to call 911 in the first place, or got Daniel to call. So it's interesting. I mean, this was just the start of Leilani's lies, but I know that you're going to get to that, so I won't give anything away. But yeah, it's the start.
Yeah, we've got a lot to get to. Well, let's listen to Billy Joe, who's Leilani Simon's mother, Quinton's grandma, and as Lauren said, the owner of the home.
Did she have her own rooms within that residence that were?
Yes, sir, she did.
Who did she reside here with?
Danny Youngkin, my husband Thomas Howell, and my son Paul Simon, and Victor Joe.
Three minor children.
All right, Joseph, so we're laying out who's in the house. So you're investigating this, and everyone who has access to the house or lives in the house obviously needs to be interviewed, and their story has to be verified, because that's the first place you have to look when a child is missing.
Yeah, you're right. But, you know, one of the initial statements that came out relative to this person is that they stated that the child had been taken or snatched. You know, to think about that, just let that seep into the groundwater there and think about that a little bit. Why is it that your mind flies to that issue immediately? And if that's the case, and if you can come up with that supposition, the question is, who in the hell is coming and going out of that house on a daily basis, on an hourly basis? And why is that house unsecured? Those are the big questions that you're going to be asking, because first off, who knows who the occupants are in that house? If they have an awareness that this little child, this precious little baby is in that house, who would have that information, that would know that that child is there, and that would be so motivated to snatch that child away from that family and run off with them? That's a big question here.
And the other thing, Lauren, that we heard in the 911 call was the door is open. But then the boyfriend says, yeah, but it's got bolts, but it's open. And very clear to say, well, Quinton can't open the door. But the door is open. You live in an area like this and there's woods in a neighborhood. It seems you should be spending some time outside searching for the child, like frantically searching for the child.
I agree with you. And I thought that was a little odd.
Yeah, anytime a child is missing, someone is going to see someone frantically looking for their child. And when I say frantically, I mean losing their mind, screaming, not plotting what they're going to tell when they have to call 911. I think we can name a couple other cases where nobody was really looking too hard for the baby. Our girl V. Oakley said, Leilani lost custody for a reason. No one thinks their kid is going to kill your grandchild, but look where we are now. Yeah, hindsight's quite a bitch, isn't it? It certainly is. Listen, when the authorities tell someone your child is not fit to be around your grandchild, you take heedance to that. You don't just do whatever you want to do and play grandma and say, well, I'm going to give her another chance. You can't. You've already been told. She has a lot of growing up to do before she can be a mama.
that while Danny is making the phone call, she's just kind of in the background adding context, because that's also not something that you would normally do on a 911 call. Start saying, well, it could be this. Well, it could be that. You're going to want to say, what should I do? Should I go search? You know, what, like everybody, come quick, come quick. My son is missing. You don't really get that. You hear more excuses.
Absolutely. All right, Lauren, Joseph Scott Morgan staying with us. Coming up next, what will investigators be able to determine from Quinton's remains?
Additional testing, including a DNA analysis, is being conducted, and we have every reason to believe that this will confirm the remains are Quinton's.
How could live ammunition have made it onto that set? An A-list actor charged in the fatal shooting on a film set.
Several members of the crew were already upset with the safety conditions.
This was an unspeakable tragedy, but Alec Baldwin committed no crime.
You need to be well aware of what is in this gun.
There is no way for the court to right this wrong.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. Season finale Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Dang it, I couldn't get that to skip. All right, question for our friends. What do you think happened to Quinton? Not trying to get grim or turn anyone's stomach more. It's a two-ply question. What do you think happened to him? And mentally, physically, as a mama, as a daddy, could you be on that jury? Could you listen to week upon week, day upon day of horrific testimony? I don't know if I could. I'm being honest.
On Friday, our search teams at the waste management landfill found what they believed were human remains. This afternoon, the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia confirmed that they are, in fact, human remains. Additional testing, including a DNA analysis, is being conducted, and we have every reason to believe that this will confirm the remains are Quinton's.
He was thrown out like garbage. This little boy that you're looking at was killed and thrown out like garbage. They had to go to a landfill to recover his remains. Unreal. Which brings me to my next question, which is about what happened to the little guy. What will investigators be able to determine from Quinton's remains? It's so sad. It is so sad. But the investigation must continue. You got to figure this stuff out. Still with us, Joseph Scott Morgan and Lauren Conlon.
Amy in Boston, she said, my son, who, by the way, is just as cute as a bug's ear, Amy. I'm bragging on your baby right now. My son is the same age as Quinton. This case broke me. We also saw Amy in Boston when we were talking about Harmony Montgomery. If she could have jumped through the computer, old Teardrop wouldn't have had a chance to go to trial.
Lauren, the one thing about this search that I think people have to realize, and this was like a massive search that was done, an incredible effort by everyone involved.
Yes, Vinny, it was a huge search. Tons of money was put into this, over $250,000 by the county. The FBI was involved. You know, they had local police, a canine team, helicopters. Everybody in the area was searching for Quinton Simon.
Joseph Scott Morgan, I want to read something from the state's filing just to give a little perspective on what happened to Quinton, and then you can help us answer the question about what investigators are going to be able to figure out from this part of the evidence. But hours after the defendant had discarded Quinton's body in the dumpster. The hydraulic forks of a front-loading garbage truck lifted up the dumpster and dumped its contents, including Quinton, into the large box that constitutes the back of the truck. Then a powerful compactor built into the truck compacted the contents of the box. Eventually, the truck gorged its load at the trash basin of a local landfill. A bulldozer then shoved the heaped garbage 300 feet from the trash basin to a cell. Once at the cell, the garbage and Quinton were compacted by a roughly 50-ton machine that looks something like a steamroller, but with rollers that are studded rather than smooth.
Dear God, you can't get more descriptive than that. A bulldozer then shoved the heaped garbage some 300 feet from the trash basin to a cell. Once at the cell, the garbage and Quinton were compacted by a roughly 50-ton machine that looks something like a steamroller, but with rollers that are studded rather than smooth.
Then there was the search. The process consisted of excavators scooping garbage out of the cell and loading it into dump trucks. The dump trucks unloading the garbage at an open area known as a search deck. The garbage then being spread out into an even layer on the search deck. Law enforcement combing through the garbage, then clearing it to make room for the next load. This is repeated day after day, load after load, ton after ton. Quinton's body, is what they're saying here, went through a lot. But they did it, Joseph Scott Morgan. They found whatever was left of these remains. What are they going to be able to determine from these remains?
Well, I got to tell you, Ben, tip of the cap, first off, to law enforcement and these people that were boots on the ground. You realize how unsuccessful most of these searches generally are? I know you realize that. We've covered it for years. And I've been a part of searches like this, and it is an absolute nightmare to work in this environment. And you know, they talked about the truck or the piece of equipment that compounds everything that's contained in there. These landfills are split up into, they call it cells. You can call it grids as well, because you can't dump in the same area all the time.
I'm glad that Joseph Scott Morgan is making that clear for the idiots that sat in the cheap seats and ran their mouths while these people were doing horrific work. Ilyankas and Brooks, I hope Quinton's brother didn't see it. I hope not either, but I have a feeling he saw something. Good morning, Got a Secret. Can you keep it? I am so happy that Joseph Scott Morgan, for those that are still following the case, searchers found remains at the landfill on Friday, police said, and is now underway to determine whether the remains belong to Quinton. We know now they are. The working conditions were grueling and hazardous, and the searchers knew that the chances of finding Quinton were low. Historically, the FBI said landfill searches are only successful 5% of the time, but they were out there day after day after day, still doing it.
Tom, you have to keep it evenly spaced. And the upside is, you know, where that particular dumpster originated from that day. So it would be isolated in that specific topographic area.
Okay, I'm going to get back to this in a second. Lindsay Rose, thank you for saying this. She says, my heart goes out to the garbage men who didn't know he was in there and were just doing their jobs. You know that the man who will remain nameless that picked up that dumpster from the trailer park had to go on medical leave after being questioned, and he realized what was going on? He couldn't perform his job anymore for a while. And here's the thing, he has a very safety sensitive job. So the medication he was given, he can't safely perform his duties. He can't drive that truck with the medication he was given. We say on this show all the time, yeah, we have the crime. We have the victim, we have the perp. But it spreads to so many other people. Could you imagine you're just doing your job? FBI comes and they're like, what time are you there? Let me see your logs. Let's talk to your supervisor. And you realize what they're doing? Oh, every time he goes to pick up a dumpster now, he's going to question if there's a little baby in there.
For that site. One of the things you have working against you is nature. Remember, a landfill is there to break down all organic material. And I'm not being disrespectful here, but the human body is chief among these. And so decomposition is promoted. One interesting piece to this, Finn, is that they talk specifically about finding skeletal remains, which means that within weeks, his little precious body would have broken down very quickly, probably a lot quicker than, say, for instance, if this was a body that was placed out in the woods somewhere. You get it into this environment and it's greatly compromised. So if you're looking for, say, injuries to the tissue, like a bruise or even a gunshot wound or a knife wound, you're not going to find it most of the time because all of the soft tissue will be gone. So then you're reliant upon the skeletal remains, which they removed to Quantico. And that's kind of an interesting bit there. For me, it was, at least. They first went to Quantico, and then they came back to the state of Georgia to the state medical examiner's office. They quickly, early on, determined that these were a child's skeletal remains, which are completely different than an adult. They're not matured. And so they're very easily compromised. The bones are very soft. So that's why this is, I'm not trying to be grotesque. I'm just saying this is a miracle that they even found him. And so that's why this is such an achievement on the part of law enforcement, and they couldn't deserve more credit.
And as you get those remains and you examine them, what are you looking for? What can you get from the skeletal remains of this small?
You know, poor Joseph, he's really scratching his head. He doesn't quite know how to answer this. So while all this is going on, dipshit Billy sends this to Cher. My baby Quinton, sweet monkey do Simon. Cher goes, oh, that's him? Yes, it's my baby Quinton. Those are dog remains. That's a cremated dog in there. They did not lay Quinton in state with a flag over a coffin. That's for a canine that was killed in duty. But she Googles a picture and sends it out as if it's Quinton. Hey, maybe wishful thinking. I don't know. But here's Joseph Scott Morgan explaining how much testing was going on. And for all we know, still might be. Goodness, I couldn't believe when that happened. And that idiot, Jennifer Coffindaffer, believed it. And I'm like, you of all people should know.
All young child.
Yeah, one of the key things is they're being very cagey about this. Did you notice in the report, it was very nonspecific relative to, well, the weapon or the instrument that was used. They talked about, and I'm going to get the phrase, maybe you can correct me here, but it was an instrument that was used and it was nonspecific. Well, an instrument or an object, rather, can be any number of things. It can be a hammer, a baseball bat. It can be a knife. You know, those are all objects or instruments. Generally when you hear object, though, that implies blunt force trauma. So I have to I have to ask myself this. If you're making that determination, and again, we don't have this in its final context, do you have some bit of the skull that remained where you could appreciate maybe some kind of fracture or something that had occurred? Because if you're talking about a knife wound, much more difficult to assess that on skeletal remains.
Joseph Scott Morgan, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insight, and you do it so well and so delicately. Lauren Conlon, thank you.
God, Vinny's like, I can't eat dinner tonight.
Hard to believe that anyone could or would bring harm to Quinton, but someone did. He was reported missing on October 5th, 2022. He had been living in Savannah, Georgia with his grandparents, his mom, and her boyfriend. His remains were found in a landfill after an extensive search. Prosecutors say it was the actions of Leilani Simon, his mother, that led them to that search. She's now been charged with his murder, but there are still plenty of questions in this case that prosecutors believe they can answer.
Look at her face, like she doesn't know why she's there. Look at her.
In this case.
The mugshot, she just bothered, okay? She just bothered. She's like, how dare you?
That prosecutor.
Look at her. Oh, she's like Megan Boswell. What am I doing here? Can somebody let me know? I mean, I already gave an interview to the news and said if it turns out I have anything to do with it, I'll answer all the questions. And look, she's got glasses on. She got her GED. She's so damn smart. You know, I'm just glad she don't have that COVID rag on her face. I love when the criminals wear that and nobody else in the courthouse does. They don't want people seeing them. Look at that.
Believe they can answer as they seek justice for little Quinton Simon.
It's a tragedy beyond tragedies. You know, children are so dependent on the adults in their world and the adults in their lives. And they trust their parents. They trust the adults. And when that trust is broken, to me, it's beyond heartbreaking, because what stands between a child and harm are the ones who are there to protect them, to hug them. And obviously that didn't happen in this case. You go to the indictment, and we haven't learned a ton of specifics about this case because of the way it has sort of proceeded through our system of justice, and some information has come out. For instance, take a look here at count 1 from the indictment. Malice murder. This is Georgia. Leilani Marie Simon, on or about the 5th day of October, 2022, did unlawfully, with malice aforethought, cause the death of her son, Quinton Simon, a human being, in a manner unknown to the grand jury at this time. Unknown.
I tell you what, I wish every state had the DP. I really do. Because let's face it, I mean, people say, oh, well, they might have it wrong. They might have it wrong. Look, after all the appeals and years it takes, they don't. But I really wish they would start putting the thumb down on these women. Let them sit on death row. Malice murder. Give her the DP. That's what I say.
Like I said, putting together the pieces of this story and trying to figure out exactly what happened has not been easy for investigators. They need to tell a story, though. When you go to trial, you need to tell a story to the jury. If you're trying to prove someone did something, you got to tell them what you believe they did, which brings me to my next question. What do prosecutors say happened to Quinton? That's the opening statement. I mean, you've got to tell the jury, hey, this is what happened to this child. This is why we are here. Joining me to help us work through all of this, private investigator Jason Jensen. and podcast host and Pop Crime TV reporter Lauren Conlon. I wanted to put one other count from the indictment up.
Oh, God, not him. He was taken up for Leilani a few years ago. All right, fine. We can all have a change of heart, but come on.
Because I think this gives us, again, another piece of information from Quinton's story.
He was talking about her childhood, addiction, the way she runs through Dick like it's Elmer's glue. Goodness.
And this is count 2 from the indictment, felony murder. Did commit the offense of aggravated assault, a felony, in that the accused, Leilani Simon, the mother, did make an assault upon the person of her son, Quinton Simon, with an object that when used offensively against a person did result in serious bodily injury. The nature of the object being unknown to the grand jury at this time. Jason Jensen, things being unknown to the grand jury, to me, problematic. We don't know the manner in which Quinton's life was taken. They say there's an object used. We don't know what the object used here is. There seems to be a few holes right now in this case, unless they just don't want to reveal them, but they didn't reveal it to the grand jury.
You're right, Benny, and that's the biggest challenge that we have here. I mean, definitely by saying that it's unknown, they don't know how it happened or maybe even why it happened. But what we do know is that from our experience in the legal system, that when a parent combines, illegal controlled substance usage, it often leads to child neglect or abuse. So we have that as a guide for them to follow. And then when they're investigating the disappearance and we get all these conflicting stories that don't align with the facts, then you know that that's the key suspect to be worried over. And certainly the circumstances of losing custody a week before kind of.
Well, it wasn't a week before, you genius. And this wasn't done with her hand. There was an object. What was in her hand? I've often wondered if she broke her phone. She's always on that damn thing. I brought up for a long time about Gannon when they said they can't find the Switch, the Nintendo Switch. I often wondered if that wasn't one of the murder weapons. One of, because we know how that case went. It could be the plastic trophy from Walgreens. It says World's Best Mom.
Adds into this. So clearly we know who did it. We just don't know how or why.
Lauren, here's a big question. I think that is a cloud over this case. They've been saying she was the lone suspect from the start. I get it, but she's not home alone. Her boyfriend is there. Her boyfriend is there. How does he not have the information or not be charged? That's the part that is very confusing to me.
I understand, Vinny. It's confusing. However, I believe that from the start, police knew right away what they were dealing with. Leilani told lie after lie after lie. She was under the influence of a controlled substance. She lied about that. She lied about her whereabouts that night. She lied about her whereabouts the next morning. So right away, they knew what was going on. They just had to prove it. And between analyzing her cell phone records and going through the house and searching, I believe all of that combined. Oh, along with the fact, Vinny, that she was seen with her mother the first day that the landfill was searched. She was seen with her mother taking shots at a bar. She just appeared to be living her life, lying, not exactly caring. So they just had to get their evidence together and make an arrest here. But You're right. Confusing, but they knew.
Let me, Jason, count 3 of the indictment for felony murder. The accused did maliciously cause her son, Quinton Simon, cruel and excessive physical pain. It seems to make an allegation like that, you have to have some idea of what happened here.
Right, yeah, they're definitely going through the list of possibilities, going from felony murder, aggravated murder, and really trying to cover all their bases, and they're going to let the facts play out and the jury decide. Now,
We did get something from one state filing in this case, which to me tells us how they ended up at the landfill. The state provided the following information regarding the locations and times of the offensive charged in counts 1 through 4. At the residence located at the house from approximately 11:10 p.m. on October 4th, 2022 to approximately 1:10 a.m. on October 5th, 2022. So she's home from 11:10 to 1:10. Then inside a Dodge Journey bearing a Georgia tag number en route from the house to the dumpsters at the Azalea Mobile Home Plaza between 1:10 a.m. and approximately 1:19 a.m. A 9-minute drive from the home to this mobile home plaza, the dumpsters there. And then at the dumpsters at the Azalea Mobile Home Plaza between approximately 1:19 a.m. to 1:22 a.m. on October 5th, 2022. Jason Jensen, you put together the pieces of a circumstantial case. You look at some of the circumstances here. She's out the night before 1:10 driving to the dumpsters at a mobile home community.
Right, and her excuse was she claimed that she went to a friend's house to get Oragel, and then when obviously, the investigators are going to vet out that information, and when
she met her friend at the dumpster to get Oragel. I think, like I said, I think this horrific crime was committed around 1 a.m. And she had to do some quick planning. So let's look at this. Let's say I'm right and it's 1 a.m. and she calls 911 around 9:30 a.m. That's almost 10 hours to get ahead of the police and what they're eventually going to find out, and they did. At 20 months old, was he breaking molars? And that was driving her crazy? Because she just wanted to sit there and lead her usual methic evening? Paper Slut said, that's where I'm at. He was teething. Because we know when they're that age and those molars start breaking through, it's painful and they will scream, cry, get diarrhea, upset at their stomach. But you don't grab the Walgreens trophy and beat them in the head. No. And you don't make up a fake friend and say, I met her at the dumpster to get Oragel. You get your own Oragel.
when it doesn't jive, then they know that there's something more sinister that deals with the dumpster. So that's why they, their investigation led to the landfill.
If they've got her at the dumpsters, they follow where that dumpster ended up, and they found little Quinton's remains. Lauren, the other thing about this is this now gives me a timeline, right, of when they believe he's dead. The night before, I remember the boyfriend on the phone with 911 saying he saw Quinton at 6 a.m. Those two things don't equal. That doesn't work.
You're right. And I want to point out that Leilani did admit to going to the dumpster. She said she was just disposing your normal garbage right at 1 a.m. But you're absolutely right, Vinny. Danny said that he saw Quinton. So we're left wondering, did he see him? Is he lying? I mean, I have a feeling that these two, and this is my speculation based on Leilani, they do some drugs. Maybe he doesn't have a good sense of time. We don't know yet.
You know, Jason, he seems to be the most important witness for this case if he's going to testify. He hasn't been charged with anything, right? So he can come into the courtroom and kind of talk about this, but he's got to explain how he can see Quinton at 6 a.m. that morning after the babysitter was called at 5:30 and canceled, but sees him on the way out to work, yet prosecutors are going to say that child was disposed of the night before.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Danny has a immunity situation going on where he's providing state's witness testimony against Leilani because, you know, that's their best evidence to get a conviction. So I wouldn't be surprised if he knew more and could have been.
I won't be surprised either. We have talked about this and talked about this. If Danny, Billy, if they did not receive a good old proffer agreement, hey, not going to prosecute you, but you are going to put your crusty ass on that stand and you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help Quinton.
In charge, but in order to help build a case against the actual actor that caused the death, they needed him to testify.
Yeah, and if he's the other person there, Lauren, my guess is when we get to trial, there's going to be some finger pointing. And Leilani, where's the natural place for her to point the finger? Right at her boyfriend, who said he saw Quinton that morning.
Yes, I'm ready for this trial. I mean, I feel like Danny, I agree with Jason with what he's.
The reason I believe Danny did see him or see something is because I don't believe that the pillow, considering the luminol, that would suggest suffocation. And it certainly wouldn't have brain matter on it. And when it was said by the DA to Judge Tammy Stokes back in the spring that they have specific testing that was going on then, we do not know the results, we won't know until trial, for his pajamas, which could be just a little swatch that they found at the landfill, and the pillowcase to test for brain matter. I don't think old Danny was like, hey, there's my little buddy. He's sleeping like an angel. I think he just glanced over and saw him. He doesn't look like a hands-on daddy to me, okay? I think he was out the door to go to work. He is so dumb, he didn't even know Lazy had his phone and was texting Diana and deleted it. He didn't even know. He was hit with this at the interrogation. It wouldn't surprise me.
Said, but I don't necessarily think Danny was involved in the killing, but it's completely possible that Danny was helping Leilani not get in trouble for her actions.
That makes sense. It doesn't make sense to do it, but your analysis makes sense of what happened here. All right, guests are staying with us. Still to come, and this is another question because there's some history here.
This should be their protector.
These are the types of cases that get people very worked up. People in the community, people in the true crime community got very worked up about this one. They still are, obviously, but now it's been a couple of years. Showing up, protesting at the house, and it's all because a little child, this little child, 20 months, is missing at that point, and mom does not seem that concerned, is not out searching, is like having a pretty good time. And it's very frustrating and it's heartbreaking. And
I see a lot of people are asking about the custody situation, and I have my own questions about that. Because we know early on, after Leilani's arrest, they wanted to subpoena the DFACS records. Supposedly, the newborn baby, Sky, Danny's daughter, was born with drugs in her system. How did they maintain custody? Zane and Quinton, there was already a permanent guardianship. Permanent, not temporary. It's a permanent guardianship to Billy. And if I hear the term fell through the cracks one more time, I'm going to take a shit out my crack and fall in it, because I'm really tired of hearing that.
then you dive a little deeper into the family dynamics and what exactly is going on here, because this was a young mother, obviously, right? A young mother who didn't seem like she was ready for motherhood, but had children. Take a look at this. This is from the Georgia Child Support Worksheet. This is concerning Quinton. Child, Quinton Simon. Non-custodial parent, Leilani Simon. Non-parent custodian, Billy Howell. That's grandma. So in this case where a child goes missing and a child ends up in a landfill, this was a child who was on the radar as being potentially in danger.
For real. And it doesn't have my name on there. It doesn't have Diana's name on there. Custodian is Billy. And if I'm reading this properly, it says monthly gross income for Leilani. $1,257? Where the hell did she get $1,200 a month?
So much so that Quinton's mom did not have custody of her own child, yet that night she seemed to have custody of her child. Grandma's the actual parent here, is the custodial non-parent. So that brings us to our next question, which is an important one in understanding what exactly is going on in this little boy's life. Why didn't Leilani have custody of her child? You don't lose custody of your child that easily. There have to be issues. Still with me, Jason Jensen and Lauren Conlon. So let's talk about some of those issues and why she wouldn't have custody. Lauren, this is someone, I guess, troubled. A troubled young mother.
Okay. Not trying to get into anyone's personal life, but anyone in here have children younger than what is considered the norm? Speaking for myself, I had my oldest son when I was 18. My middle son, who I'm fighting with right now about Thanksgiving, at 19. And the baby at 20. None of this would have ever occurred to me. None of it. Look at this, baby kisses, 16. Yeah, I don't see any documents like this about myself. Britt, twins at 18, 3 by 21. Yeah. Chrissy, I was 19 when my oldest was born. V. Oakley, I was 19 and 21. So the troubled young mother, shit in your hat and put it on your head. I'm sick of listening to that. If you're old enough to spread them, you're old enough to raise them.
Yes, Leilani was actually on probation when Quinton passed away. She had quite a few charges under her belt, with the most recent charge being theft. She was caught burglarizing a store in North Carolina, and then she was caught stealing from somebody else's trailer. And I also want to point out, Vinny, that Billy Joe, her mother, I'm still trying to figure out how she had custody, because her rap sheet is longer than J-Lo's husband list. Billy Joel had grand larceny, battery, prostitution, possession, fraud. I mean, these kids, you have to just feel so bad, because my gosh, what did you all think was going to happen?
And Jason Jensen, so now you look at it and you say, Quinton's on the radar, right? They know that there's problems at home. They try to keep a child as close to home as possible when they can, if there's a relative who can jump in. And I guess the relative here was grandma, but as Lauren pointed out, grandma has her own history in all of this. So this was a child who seemingly didn't really have much of a chance.
Right, yeah. Typically, when this situation arises, it's because the parent, the natural parent, has issues with the law, oftentimes drug-related issues, and the types of offenses that she had recently been convicted of, the theft and the burglary and things, those are usually categorized as drug-related offenses, because that's how they get the funds. They steal things or, trade them for drugs to, satisfy their addiction. So clearly that was the situation. The children, Quinton was removed from Leilani because of the drugs and placed in grandma's care, Billy Joe, but they were living together. So even though she wasn't supposed to have custody.
She wasn't supposed to have custody. This is just a snippet of the court paperwork when they took Zane away from Billy. The maternal grandmother, that would be Billy, has a permanent guardianship order. Permanent. Order as to the child Zane pursuant to documents from juvenile court of Burke County. The maternal grandmother failed to provide adequate supervision for Zane, leaving Zane in the home in the care of his mother, a person the maternal grandmother knew or should have known was unfit to provide proper care.
It was still de facto custody because they're in the same home.
And that's where we get to the day or the night that Quinton dies, Lauren. And it seems that even though she's the non-custodial parent, she was the parent with custody at the time that Quinton died. Like, she is there. I don't know where grandma was.
Right. Grandma and her husband were not there. And this is the reason why the other two children were taken from grandma and moved to foster care after this happened, because she did not do her job. She left those babies with a mother who was not supposed to be a mother. She was never supposed to have custody of those kids at that time. And that right there is unfortunately on Billy Joe.
And it brings us like full circle, Jason, to the babysitter, who also will play a large role in all this, because this babysitter basically played a large role in the child's life. I think that was the best care that Quinton got, is when the babysitter got to take care of him.
Yeah, obviously state licensed, responsible adult that is watching more than Quinton as a profession. So certainly qualified and, trusted by other family members of different children to watch their kids. So the time that Quinton was in the best care was while, everybody's relieving their responsibilities to this babysitter.
Yeah, and as we wrap things up here, Lauren, when you look at these pictures of this child, I mean, what do you see?
Vinny, I can't even begin to explain how my heart is just broken. I can't even look at these pictures without wanting to cry. This entire show, you guys have been showing these adorable pictures of this toddler, so innocent, so precious, and the one person that he looked to, his mother, did this to him. I unfortunately think about the fear he must have felt, the confusion, the pain, and my heart breaks.
We're out of time. Thank you both so much. Lauren Conlon, Jason Jensen. We'll see you again.
Boy, Vinny knows how to shut down the show. Oh boy, I tell you what, he does. All right, we're out of time. All right. But I mean, yeah, Billy does have her hand in this. And I think it's going to be very eye-opening, and they will say it in the trial. They will say it in the trial. Who got a deal? Who didn't? Who had to be subpoenaed? Who didn't? It's going to be really eye-opening. We have a busy week next week. We got Sarah Boone. Yeah, they're starting jury selection on Monday. They had to move it because of the hurricane. At the 11th hour, they offered her yet another plea deal that she refused. Hey, I guess 20 years sounds better than 5 more. I don't know. Leilani going to trial. Court TV has been granted. Access to the courtroom. I agree with our friend Susan, but for her actions, he'd be safe. Exactly. If Billy had done what she was advised to do, Quinton would not be dead. I hate to say it, and she has to live with it the rest of her life. The rest of her life, she has to. What to do, my friends? What to do? All right, if I don't see you over in Discord today, we'll probably get in there and have a Discord live. If I don't see you over there in one of the Facebook groups, I'll see you back here tomorrow. Anybody have any idea about what you want to talk about tomorrow? You want to do like a whole recap of all the crazy things that are going on? Run it by me. Like I say, if you got the crime, I've got the time. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you, Mod Squad, and thank you, everyone, for being here. You are the absolute best. I'm going to let the chief take us out. Listen to what the chief said.
And we believe that this was the right move today to be able to do that. She doesn't deserve a Thanksgiving, quite frankly, if I can go off script a little bit. Quinton deserves that.